Marshall Mathers IV here. I wish The Mummy, directed and produced by Stephen Sommers, which came out and was released on May 7 in the year 1999, would have came out and been released on January 7 in the year 1997. I don't care so much about the day and month it was released as much as I do the year that I strongly and personally wished it would have been released, being 1997. And I not only wish that, there are so many things I wish would have been different about The Mummy, starting with the fact that I wish Imhotep or The Mummy would have been played by the rapper DMX. I wish that Denzel Washington would have played Seti the First. I wish Lisa Lopes, aka Left Eye, would have played Anox on the Moon. I wish there would have been a bunch of black guys to play Imhotep's priests with either bald heads or wearing bald caps, but probably obviously would have been better if they would have actually had bald heads instead of stupid fucking white guys who are overweight with shiny gold body paint, which is totally historically inaccurate. And as much as I still like the movie, and notice I don't say that I love the movie, however I did when I was a kid, but as an adult, looking back, I realize and think to myself, God, just how wrong it was historically, just how inaccurate it was historically. And what do I mean by that? Even though it was a fake fantasy movie, so it doesn't even really matter, as most people would argue, and you're right. But they do, in fact, use actual historical figures, like Imhotep was a real ancient Egyptian pharaoh. So was Seti the First. So was Anox on the Moon. So was Nefertiti, that we find out that Evelyn, or Evie for short, is reincarnated, that we find out in The Mummy Returns, even though she's fucking white. And Nefertiti, if anything, was not white. She was probably black, if anything. And it really fucking pisses me off and disgusts me that for so long that scientists and archaeologists and whatnot, and white people in general, have been just completely trying to whitewash ancient Egyptian history for so long. It's sickening and just irritates me, because the Egyptian mythology is beautiful. Their history and also their legacy that they've left behind. And as a kid, I used to be really, really obsessed with ancient Egypt and their mythology and pretty much anything about it. The mummies and whatnot. And that's why I got into those movies in the first place. But anyway, continuing on, I wish that Evelyn, or Evie for short, would have been played by MIA, the female rapper, if, of course, she would have became famous way younger than she actually did. And then her brother, Jonathan, by Naveen Andrews, the librarian, like the old librarian or whatever, by Ben Kingsley, and let's see what else. Oh yeah, and that's pretty much it. And I wish that the movie itself would have had an R rating for nudity, or brief nudity, some profanity, and like horrific images, such as the beginning where Anox on the Moon comes in to the temple, and when we're introduced to her character, that Lisa Lopes, aka Left Eye, would have been completely nude in that scene, which I think would have been much more historically accurate, knowing that ancient Egyptians would be naked a lot. The men and the women, in a lot of their activities and just daily routines, because, I mean, Egypt in itself is hot as fuck. And it was normal, though, thousands of years ago, for people to do that. And same thing with ancient Rome or whatever, in ancient Greece. But anyway, and I wish that during the scene where Anaxinamun and Imhotep were killing the pharaoh, or in other words Seti the First, and stabbing him to death, that it would have actually shown that really intense, extreme, kind of horrific scene in the movie, instead of showing a stupid fucking shadow behind a curtain and just seeing the shadow of what's going on, and seeing the stupid fucking reaction of Imhotep's priests, who are a bunch of fat white guys, which is totally historically inaccurate to what the ancient Egyptians actually were, race-wise, of course. And I mean, it's silly that both white people and black people have been arguing about this when black people are right. I mean, you can look at any fucking ancient paintings of the gods, or even the ancient Egyptians themselves in their temples or in their tombs or whatnot, and they're black. They're black, not white. I mean, maybe there were a few white ancient Egyptians here and there, but for the most part, they were definitely black. And I wish that there would have actually been a scene of Imhotep and his priests breaking out Anaxinamun from her crypt, stealing her body before taking it to Hamunaptra. I think having a scene like that would have been pretty dope. Plus, that would have also pretty much extended the intro scene or sequence of the ancient Egyptian, or ancient Egypt, like what it looked like. That would have just been dope as fuck, in my opinion anyways. And then have a scene where after Imhotep and his priests get stopped and don't get to complete the ritual of bringing Anaxinamun back to life and get mummified alive, that in the scene where Imhotep is getting his tongue cut off, that we would have actually seen that with like realistic special effects and whatnot, and realistic blood. And of course, with DMX, the rapper, as Imhotep, as I've said many times over and before. And instead of having the scene that we actually got, which almost we did see him get his tongue cut off, but it wasn't played by DMX, of course. It was played by Arnold Vosloo, who's a white guy. And we almost do see him get his tongue cut off, and then a guy walks right in front of the camera. And then I would have fucking loved a scene showing Mr. Burns actually getting his eyes and tongue sucked out by Imhotep, with, of course, CGI special effects. But all we got instead was stupid fucking scream or yell from him, and then on to the next scene of the other characters running away from the Beatles. And then, like, we didn't get to see at all any time in the whole Mummy movie, the first one, of like what Imhotep could actually do. Like, what does his powers look like? What does it look like when he's sucking the flesh off of someone's body, or sucking the eyes out of their sockets, or the tongue out of their mouth? I mean, that would have been cool. And of course, the only way you could have made it seem even realistic is by using CGI special effects. And then I wish during this scene where they're all at the bar in the first movie and they're all drinking, and then the wine turns to blood, that's the fakest fucking looking blood ever. And I mean, real blood is much more thick, dark, and it's not as liquidy. And if they would have had more realistic movie blood, that would have been cool. And I would have strongly preferred that myself. And then also have a scene where Mr. Henderson actually gets his flesh sucked off, that we can actually see, instead of, again, a stupid fucking shadow on the wall of it happening, but not actually seeing it in its full effect, which would have been really interesting and neat and fascinating to see. But I guess Stephen Sommers wanted to make it fucking family friendly or something, or even kid friendly, which he kind of did. And then have a scene where the last American, and I forgot his name, would have also got his flesh sucked off. He was the American, the last one to be alive when they were on the car and all the people were possessed by Imhotep and like chanting his name over and over and over. And then he was like shooting some of them until he ran out of bullets. And then he shows Imhotep the last canopic jar, and then Imhotep sucks his flesh off. But all we get to see is Benny's reaction to it, with some sound effects of it happening in the background. Like, how fucking ridiculous is that? That shit pisses me off. And I don't know about you, but I mean, in many ways, I think that movie just downright sucks. So those are all the things I wish would have been different about The Mummy, as well as, of course, the fact that it would have been released in the year 1997, on January 7, 1997, and had a strong R rating. And that movie would have been so much more cool, extreme, severe, intense, interesting, and fascinating, and it would have just been more dope. But sadly and unfortunately, it wasn't. Anyway, I'm out.